Welcome back to page 121. Feeling better from the latest blast of COVID. I thank everybody for their well wishes. It's going to be another day or so before I appear in front of the camera. But today we're going to take a look at an item out of Unearthed Arcana, the Rod of Alertness. And the idea for this video actually came from one of my viewers, Macinus778. So thank you very much for the suggestion. And let's take a quick look at the Rod of Alertness. I love the Rod of Alertness, by the way. Just so I can go on record. My fine Unearthed Arcana. My original copy from 1985 with the completely sundered spine. I actually have a better copy that I picked up a few years later. And here we go. Rod of Alertness. This is a nice magic item that's got a lot to unpack. So I'm going to just kind of read through it a little bit, and then once I've read through it, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to unpack some of the stuff. So much of Unearthed Arcana wasn't really play tested before it went to press, and a lot of the stuff hadn't been answered fully. And the rod is one of the major ones of that. But anyway, the Rod of Alertness. This magical rod is indistinguishable from a footman's mace +1. However, upon usage, its true powers will reveal themselves. The rod bestows +1 to the possessor's die rolls for being surprised, so you're harder to surprise. And in combat, the possessor gains +1 initiative die roll to your die roll. If it's grasped firmly, the rod will enable the concentrating character to detect alignment, evil, good, illusion, invisibility, lie, or magic. The use of any of these detect powers does not expend any charges in the rod. If the Rod of Alertness is planted in the ground, and the possessor wills it to alertness, the rod will then sense any creatures within 12-foot radius, 120-foot radius, provided the creature has intent to harm the possessor. Each of the 8 flanges of the mace-like head of the rod will then cast a light spell along one of the cardinal directions of the compass, so north, northeast, east, southeast, etc., at a 60-foot range. And at the same time, the rod will create the effect of a prayer spell upon all friendly to the possessor creatures within a 20-foot radius. Immediately thereafter, the rod will send forth a mental alert to these same friendly creatures, warning them of possible danger from the unfriendly creatures within the 120-foot radius. Lastly, the rod can be used to simulate the casting of an animate object spell, utilizing any 16 or fewer objects specifically designated by the possessor and placed roughly around the perimeter of a 60-foot radius circle centered on the rod. So it could be 16 selected shrubs, 16 specifically shaped tree branches, or something like that. Functions excluding the animate object dwemer require 1 charge, and the animation also requires 1 charge. So if all of the rod's protective devices are utilized at once, 2 charges are expended. The rod can be recharged by a cleric of 18th or higher level, so long as the rod has at least 1 charge remaining when the recharge is attempted. A lot to unpack there. Rods, by the way, go at they have up to 50 charges. They don't state specifically what level they operate at, so we generally let rods operate at 12th level or the lowest level needed to cast whatever the specific ability of the rod was. So that's pretty standard in D&D. So we would let this go at 12th level. The important stuff here is it's indistinguishable from a footman's +1 mace. It doesn't say that it works as a +1 mace, but I would say absolutely it does. I think the intent is that it would be a +1 attack, +1 damage mace. And then when you hold the item, the rod bestows +1 to your chances to being surprised. So if you're only surprised in 2 out of 6, you'd be only surprised on 3 out of. You'd get a bonus to that roll. And then possessor gains +1 on initiative die rolls. The way we do initiative is we throw a die 10, and you want to be low. So, and you get modifiers for your dexterity after 16. So 16 is -1, 17 is -2, 18 is -3. So if I have the rod, I get an additional -1. So if I have an 18 dexterity at a -3, I would be -4 on my initiative. For instance, if I threw a 6, -4 becomes 2. I would act in the second segment of in the way we do initiative. I've done videos in the past on our initiative system, so I'm not going to reiterate the whole thing here. Also, you can detect alignment, evil, good, illusion, invisibility, lie, or magic. I actually had an argument with a player when this first came out, saying that he could do all of those at once because the book kind of poorly states what you can do with those. And I said, wait, it says detect alignment, evil, good, illusion, invisibility, lie, or magic. That implies you can only do one at a time. And that was the ruling that I made at the time. And that's how we've played the rod since. And when it's placed into the ground and it's got its 120-foot radius, provided the creature has intent to harm the possessor. Okay, so the rod will sense any creature coming in to harm the possessor. And that throws a light spell. Well, first off, the light spell. What level does the light spell go at? How long do the lights last? So the way we rule it is when a creature that intends to harm the possessor comes into the area, the light spells go off along the cardinal points, the 8 cardinal points of the compass, and becomes a light that works at 12th level. So a 12th level magic user light would be 12 turns. So the area is immediately lit up very brightly. There's no shadows to hide in or anything when you're in this area. And then it can simulate the casting of animate object spells, allowing it to basically animate tree limbs. We just have the person who is going to use that function pick out the 16 tree limbs and say, okay, this is what's going to animate it, all these. And then we let them strike as if it was an ent of 12 dice, since it's where everything works at 12th level. So it's not stated how long that lasts, but we just go to the animate object spell for that. This is meant to be during the crisis moment when that person intends to harm you. If you set the rod up for the alertness and the animation charge, I don't charge the player any charges from the rod if the rod of alertness does not go off. So if they plant it and then they have an uneventful night's sleep, no charge is expended as far as I'm concerned. I let this be a nice passive little alarm system. So basically my players will set this up for both functions. They'll pick the limbs and everything, or the tree branches or bushes or whatever. They'll pick it all, and then they'll rack out. But if the night passes uneventfully, then I don't charge them any charges. It's just my interpretation of it. Now, there are a few other things in here to unpack. A creature that comes into the area without intent to harm the user. If they intend to harm the user, say a group of orcs attacks the group, then of course the rod will go off as described. But if they don't intend to harm the user, say an owlbear wanders into your encampment while you're asleep, the owlbear does not intend to harm anyone. It's looking for something to eat. So there's no intent on the owlbear's part to harm someone. It will harm someone when it finds them, but it has no intent upon entering the area to harm them, specifically the rod wielder. Because of that, I don't let the rod go off in that case. Now, once the rod wielder is attacked, yes, then all the rod charges will go off and everything else. The other object or argument being, if an assassin is creeping into the area to harm a fellow party member, but not the possessor of the rod. If that's the case, then the rod will not trigger because the owner of the rod is not the target. So this is not a sensor for anything that comes in the area. It's got very specific parameters. So just some interesting stuff to think about with the Rod of Alertness. We do allow it as a +1 attack and damage weapon. We do allow all the detection powers, but one at a time. We do allow the alertness thing, but it's got to be against somebody that has intent to harm the possessor of the rod. And then we don't charge the charges if the rod doesn't trigger. So that's all I've got to say about the Rod of Alertness today. Again, I want to thank Macinus778 for the suggestion. I love the Rod of Alertness, one of my favorite magic items out of Unearthed Arcana. So much of Unearthed Arcana required us to make judgment calls, but this book added so much to the game that I don't mind the extra work. And frankly, it made us, I think, a little bit better players and DMs because it made us think more about the stuff we were putting out there. So that's all I've got for today. Save for today on page 121. Thanks for watching. Hope to be back to normal level videos in the next day or two. Thank you for your patience with this, and I'll see you next time.